It's that time of year when the daylight is fading, the days are short, the darkness is long, and we long for the arrival of light, don't we? For longer days, for more daylight. The Bible also talks about spiritual darkness, and one of the prophecies surrounding Christ has to do with people who are living in spiritual darkness. It comes from Isaiah chapters 8 and 9. Isaiah writes during really the low point of Israel. Things are about to really take a turn for the worse in the country, and the people are so given over to spiritual darkness, they are seeking guidance anywhere they can. They're consulting psychics and mediums for guidance, and not the living God, not the God who has given them his laws and precepts, who has shown them the way. They've turned their back on him and are now living in utter darkness. And the language Isaiah uses to describe them is pretty disconcerting. He uses words like distressed, hungry, famished, enraged, darkness, gloom, sad times, hard times, people who have utterly rejected God. Doesn't that sound familiar? A lot of that sounds familiar to me. I think many of us today have turned our backs on God and are seeking spiritual guidance elsewhere. And the great thing about God is this: he doesn't just reject them or cast them off because they've rejected him. What God does is he sends light into their darkness. Isaiah 9:2 says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." If you're living in darkness, you need light that comes from the outside. You need external help. And that's what God sends. And God doesn't just send another bunch of laws or concepts or ideas, but rather God embodies his help, his light, his truth in a person. And in some of the most famous verses in the entire Old Testament, we see this in Isaiah 9:6. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Those are words we understand to be talking about Jesus, the promised Messiah. That's no ordinary human king that God is describing there. He's talking about a divine ruler who will come and set up his throne, the throne of David that will never end. God sends light into the darkness. And so it's no surprise then that in John's version of the Christmas story, in chapter 1, he says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So Advent is a season when we watch for the light. As the physical darkness of the world begins to get more and more and longer, we wait for the light of Advent, the light of the arrival of Christ. May we wait together in hope that the light is dawning. Amen.